My name is Chris Santiago, and I'm VP of Solutions Engineering here at Unravel Data. I've been with the company about 7 years now, and I've had the pleasure of working with some of the large data teams that you see here on this landing page today. Today's topic, the FinOps advantage, aligning data teams with financial goals and Databricks environments. And for today's conversation, I'm going to walk you through how FinOps teams today follow a methodology that's been working very well for many customers. I'm going to talk about some of the gaps in this methodology and ultimately provide you a demo in how Unravel solves these gaps for data teams looking to align their financial goals in Databricks environments. So let's begin. So if you're part of a FinOps team, you may be familiar with the FinOps organization. It is a collection of thousands of customers that have all gotten together to say, we need to define policies, methodologies, and all sorts of, and everything else in between to really get a hold of cloud costs. As more and more data and processing is being done in the cloud today, the more that folks really wanted to get a handle of this and created this really great organization called the FinOps organization. They have lots of content if you go to the FinOps.org website. Today, we're going to focus in on the FinOps phases. And these are phases that I see a lot of customers implement, and to various degrees, some do well better than others. You see three things here, and they are in a flywheel because this is all should be something that should be continuous. But let's go ahead and talk about the stages that you see here. The first one here is the inform stage. And really the key focus here is about providing visibility and allocation amongst where your spend is going. Now, the actions that users usually take here is to collect and analyze cloud cost data from the cloud service providers and from Databricks. They allocate costs to teams, projects, products. It could also be business units, could be cost centers. Basically, having the ability to slice and dice to really understand where some of the cost drivers could be. And last but not least, establish reporting and dashboards for transparency with the goal to enable stakeholders to understand cloud spend and usage patterns. If I'm going to spend time and resources in optimizing, I need to know where I should be spending my time because most organizations have limited staff and time. And so being able to have proper reporting in place allows organizations to know where they should be spending their time to optimize. Once organizations have a good handle of that, the next stage here is the optimize stage. And really the key focus here is all about efficiency and cost savings. Users at this stage are looking to identify waste, inefficiencies. So things such as idle resources, over provisioning, auto termination in Databricks world that are set too high, or maybe we're just using the wrong instance types that's not actually matched to the workload. It could also be code inefficiencies. So maybe contented driver, where the driver is doing most of the work and you have this multi-node environment just where most of the workers are sitting idle. So being able to identify that by using some of the system tools like system tables, and ultimately looking to optimize the architecture for both cost and performance. So there needs to be a balance there. And really the goal here in this stage is to really maximize cloud value while minimizing unnecessary spend. So it's not about reducing cost. It's really about maximizing the ROI of the spend that you are providing in these very powerful modern data stacks like Databricks. Once organizations have a good handle of that, the last piece here is operate. And so this is the third phase. And really the key focus here is to continually improve and start thinking about setting up governance. So that way we can continue to optimize from that standpoint. And some of the actions that users will take here is to establish policies and guardrails for cloud usage. Maybe they may automate cost management processes and ultimately foster a culture of accountability and collaboration with the goal of sustaining cost optimization and aligning cloud operations with business goals. Once that is set, then it's just rinse and repeat. Now, this is the theory. And a lot of organizations may start out and inform, and they're not ready to go into the optimize phase. I've seen organizations have a good, robust, decent set of reporting on the inform stage, and they're starting to optimize. And I would say even less folks actually have all three of them in place. So if you are ranking yourself in this flywheel and you feel that you might still be on phase 1 and phase 2, you're not alone. A lot of folks struggle on this due to the fact of there's just limited time and resources at the end of the day. Now, let's talk about the gaps, and specific to organizations that are running Databricks and they're trying to apply these FinOps phases. So if I go back into the inform stage, some of the challenges that I see a lot of folks run into is just the lack of granular visibility. So Databricks workloads can be a bunch of objects like clusters, jobs, notebooks. They can be transient. They could be long running. And they could be shared across multiple tenants. So tracking costs and allocating costs accurately becomes a challenge. Even if you're trying to use tagging, a lot of times the tagging that organizations use today become unreliable and they could be incomplete as well. So getting that granular visibility is a challenge when you're trying to adopt the inform stage. The other piece is that, especially on Databricks, you are using shared resourcing. So clusters that are used by multiple teams. It makes it harder to attribute costs to specific teams or projects when, say, for example, you're using Cost Explorer in Azure or AWS CloudWatch, and you're looking to understand out of this shared infrastructure, how do I break that down? Becomes a challenge. And also the lack of integration between Databricks, how they track costs in system tables, and the cloud provider billing systems can hinder detailed cost reporting because it's hard to make that like-to-like connection because it's challenging. If you've tried it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. On the optimized side, you've got dynamic workloads. So you've got clusters that are often auto-scaled or they're transient. So like job clusters, for example. So if you're looking to identify inefficiencies, for example, like over-provisioning, becomes a challenge if these clusters spin up and down. And you may not have the same visibility while it's running. It's also a trade-off for teams to balance performance and cost. So teams may prioritize performance over cost, and they may not be checking the back and leading to over-provision resources, right? It's all about meeting the SLAs for a lot of the developers. And also, there could just be a lack of expertise. The stuff can get challenging. There's hundreds of things that you can do to configure, and maybe even optimizing from a coding perspective. And so for somebody who's just starting out their journey on Databricks, they may not know what they're doing is actually not cost effective. And providing visibility of that, hinders a lot of folks from just getting value out of the optimized stage. And last but not least, operating. So first off, the challenges of just governance and accountability. So establishing and enforcing policies for Databricks usage. So things such as like setting cluster size limits, idle timeouts, things and so forth, can be challenging without buy-in from engineering teams. And what I see most is just cultural resistance. So engineers may resist changes that they perceive as limiting their ability to innovate or meet performance requirements, and ultimately difficulty in fostering collaboration between finance, engineering, and operation teams to align on cost optimization goals. So these are the challenges. And if organizations can get over some of these major challenges over here, then they can really adopt the FinOps flywheel methodology to optimize for costs for FinOps teams. Now, let me switch over here onto this tab here. And I'm going to go into my demo mode here. And I'm going to walk you through some scenarios here. So Imagine I'm a FinOps team member and I'm trying to understand costs and how to allocate spend. And I have a lot of clusters that are shared that are hosting jobs from workflows such as Airflow or ADF. And we want to start understanding, at a very granular level, down to the user on where spend is going. And so the nice thing here is you're looking at Unravel, and right out of the box, you get a set of reports here. And this one that we're in right now is a drill down report. Now, what you're seeing here is I first selected the job run chargeback type, last 30 days, and I'm grouping by user. So I'm already getting down to some very granular details from that standpoint. I also can see here I've got a DBU, and so I can see here a bunch of users here, and I can see my DBU spend. And so that's going to be specific to the Databricks. Now you see this cost here and looks almost similar, but what I'm actually seeing here is that this is my all-in cost. So think about like in Databricks or in, say, for example, Azure or AWS. This would also constitute the VMs that are associated with Databricks. It could be ingress, egress. It could be a multitude of things, right? And you get that same attribution built in from within Unravel perspective. So that complexity of trying to match all these bills together from a Databricks, from an Azure, from an AWS, all of that is done from within Unravel itself. And so if you're a FinOps team member who's looking to understand down to the details of at the job run level and the all-in cost, all of that attribution is done here from within Unravel itself. So from an informed standpoint, now I can start looking at things in terms of what is my biggest cost drivers from my all-in perspective. So if I take into account both my infrastructure spend and my Databricks spend, this can really start providing some details. And in here, I can see that my D Gupta here is my most expensive user who's submitting the most of the jobs against shared environments. But again, the attribution is specific to D Gupta, and this should align to your Azure or AWS cloud bill if you're tracking it from that perspective. So just from the informed stage, you don't even have to do anything, and we're already giving you both very granular, slicing and dicing, and that attribution is done from within the platform itself. Very, very powerful stuff there. Now let's talk about the optimize phase. And the way, what I want to do here is actually go back to the home page, and I'm here into this optimize tab. Now, the reason why I'm here is because it provides the ability for me to show that we are optimizing everything that we see in a Databricks environment. So the jobs, the notebooks. So it's not just infrastructure, it's also code as well. And you can see here, we've got some resource scaling insights, and we also have some code optimization insights. And I'm actually going to walk you through two examples over here. So the first one here is resource scaling insights. And it says that I actually have some opportunity here. I see this number here, node right sizing. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And by clicking on it, now I'm actually into this view where I can see a set number of jobs here. So each of the rows that you see here are my Databricks jobs. And what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and maybe select this second guy here. And I'm going to go into this executor imbalance event. I can see that I'm already being filtered down by this over provision. So that's that resource scaling insight. And I'm picking this one because it's telling me that I have 20 runs out of the 31 where this over provisioning insight type actually applies. If I actually click on it, you can see the number of impacted runs. You could see the problem statement. So node right sizing means node right sizing is necessary when container resources are underutilized. So it tells you what it is. I can also get the proof here by clicking on impacted runs. And here I got this symptom here that tells me that I have, in this case, resource surplus of 4 cores and 14 gigs memory. So it looks like things were over allocated. Now, the next thing here is, since we are on optimize, let's go ahead and click on this remediation here. And now I can actually see some recommendations here. So moving from this class to this class, you can actually see the price per hour savings here. Mind you, this price per hour is the all-in cost, so the VM and the DBUs primarily. And you can see that if we go ahead and change this from this family type, I can save 20% here. But if I do it on the worker nodes, I can save 41%. Now, let me walk you through exactly what's going on here. So what Unravel is doing is we're looking at everything at the job level. So no matter how many runs, we're going to make a recommendation, and we're going to go ahead and project what that what that savings could potentially be. So if you're looking at it from a cost savings perspective, this becomes very powerful to be able to show visibility on areas from an optimization standpoint. We can also use this for prioritization, which we'll get to here shortly. But the other thing I wanted to highlight too is productivity gains. Now, if you think about a normal, typical way of how teams optimize, they'll open up Databricks system tables. They'll look at the information there. They'll use it to first identify, is there even an inefficiency event here? Then they'll go ahead and they'll spend some time the root cause to see, hey, what in this case, are there other instance types that I can use to save costs without affecting performance in SLAs? Then they're going to fix it. Then they're going to verify it. Sometimes the verification fails. So you got to do this whole trial and error. And then also you got to take into effect, these job runs could have varying data volumes too. We take all of that guesswork out here and we apply or we provide these remediation steps that are looking at everything that I just talked about and make these recommendations so that way we can start to understand some cost savings from that perspective. So don't worry about the number of jobs or even the size of your team. If we could actually take ownership of that and automate that process, that's where a lot of organizations start finding the value very powerful from an Unravel perspective. Now, I promised I was going to also talk about code optimization as well. And this is also important because the developers, your developers, they may not care too much about cost. And so one of the things we can start doing here is start providing that visibility of what things they can do to cost optimize, which we'll get into when we talk about the operate phase. But I also, before I go there, wanted to talk about code optimization. Now, one of the things that makes Unravel unique in the market is that we don't just look at infrastructure itself. We'll also look for code inefficiencies as well. And in this particular example, I could see that driver contention is probably one of the biggest inefficiencies from a coding perspective. If I go ahead and click on that guy, and what I'm going to do here is, again, I'm looking at all the jobs here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the executor imbalance here again. Or I'm sorry, this light executor event. And right now I'm looking at this bottleneck, so this driver contention. For the less technical folks on the call here, if you're wondering what driver contention is, here we go. Unravel breaks it down in plain English. It's a contended driver condition occurs when the driver bottleneck leads to idle executors, reducing efficiency and increasing unnecessary costs. In other words, you have a bunch of workers that got spun up that you're paying for that aren't being used, and that is what the contended driver impact or inefficiency entails. Now, if I wanted to get a little bit more information, I can read this. If I go into impacted runs, it'll tell me exactly what it is. And so this is telling me that driver contention was for 97% and 98% of the of the application runtime here. That essentially means that we were paying for multiple workers for, in this case, 9 minutes of duration, where only 2% of the time the workers were actually being used. That's inefficient. If we want to increase performance, we want to be able to distribute these, the work amongst the workers. So not only are you going to improve performance of this job, but this will also have downstream effects on cost as well, because now you're actually leveraging the resources that you're paying for. And for the folks that may not understand how to actually address this, look no further. Unravel provides a remediation step here. So think about this as a Databricks solutions architect in the box and providing their expertise on how to actually address this from the code itself. Again, super powerful stuff, because a lot of times if you have a lot of junior resources that didn't realize that what they were doing was inefficient, or in this case, driving driver contention, we break it down here so that way they can actually follow this and actually take action on their code and make things performant and cost effective as well. So it's a very, very powerful stuff from that standpoint. Now, what I'm going to do next here is flip the script here and start talking about the operate phase. Now, we talked about some of the big pieces here was, organizations are challenged for just providing accountability. And what I wanted to do was move out here into this workflow tab because there's a couple of columns I didn't call your attention to yet, but this is the time to do it. So the first one here is you've got the insight type. So this is the identification of where the inefficiencies are. You've got your total cost. So for the FinOps folks, if you're looking to get, that fine-grained cost attribution, now we're looking at things at a job level. Now you've got this untapped savings and realized savings. And so where I've seen organizations really start to affect change in their organization and really start to promote a cost-conscious culture, being able to provide visibility into like where the biggest inefficiency events are is a good place to start. And so this is my small environment. So for folks who have much larger workloads, I'm sure that these numbers will probably be magnitudes larger. But it provides a way for us to start prioritizing which inefficiencies that we should work on. So that way we can do like the 80-20 rule or, whatever you want to call it. Let's do like the high impact, minimal effort jobs where we can actually start driving some of these optimization opportunities. And again, being able to forecast where the impact of applying those recommendations that I had shown you before really gives us a leg up for FinOps organizations to understand where they should be dedicating their team's times and providing optimizations, but also for those FinOps teams that have a hard time having that communication, that very hard technical conversation with the engineers, they could literally just send them the link to Unravel and say like, hey, it looks like you have an over provision event. Just look at on what Unravel tells you here and do it. So that way we can start tracking your realized savings here. And so this is probably from a governance standpoint, if we can actually provide visibility into folks that are actually doing the right thing, well, we should first track that and potentially they could be rewarded from that standpoint. So for folks that are really struggling to apply governance and guardrails, if we can understand where all the inefficiencies are, what's the impact of actually doing it, and then attribute them actually doing the recommendation and realizing it, we've seen a lot of success with organizations that use these KPIs to really start tracking things where we can make this fun. Maybe it's a gamification kind of thing, or maybe it's a wall of fame. Folks that have found the most inefficiencies should get rewarded from that standpoint. The list goes on. But like using Unravel to be able to really fill in the gaps that we had talked about from the FinOps phases. So, whether it's you're getting stuck on the inform stage to get the granular visibility or, getting the correct cost attribution, whether it's the optimize phase where we're trying to take into account, all the dynamic workloads and ultimately operate phase and really start setting up the governance and guardrails, and ultimately start changing a culture of resistance to a shift left mentality to driving a cost-conscious culture is really the true North Star, where customers that use Unravel data today are getting a lot closer to that reality. What I'll do next is I'll look at some of the questions here. So the first question here is, what are the key challenges organizations face when trying? Hold on one second here. Let's do this. Okay. What are the key challenges organizations face when trying to align their Databricks operations with financial objectives, and how could these be overcome? So I would first say align on a common metric, and that's cost. Cost is universal. If there's resource inefficiencies, that's going to add up to some sort of cost. So being able to align on that and start reporting on that is the first step. It's also the ability for us to start prioritizing where we should be spending our time addressing some of these inefficiencies. And, challenges, if you're doing this from using some of the out-of-the-box tooling today, like system tables, you're going to be limited by how many resources and time that you have. So why not automate all of that with Unravel? Let us do all the mundane optimization, finding the inefficiencies, so your end users can spend their time doing revenue generating activities. The The second one here, how can a data actionability platform provide cost visibility, and what types of recommendations does it typically offer? So, as you saw, Unravel provides purpose-built AI that focuses on insights and recommendations that are specific to Databricks. We also provide explanations where we can level up junior resources so they can understand and where to implement these changes. And last but not least, setting up the governance and guardrails so that way you can truly operationalize these insights and recommendations at scale, so you can start actualizing and start getting a handle on costs and improving your ROI. I'll take one more here. Can you provide examples of how organizations have successfully implemented FinOps principles in their Databricks environments, and what benefits have they seen? So, like I talked about before, mature organizations have already begun to implement the FinOps phases. And depending on where they're at, depending on which, this is live, sorry. Let me read this again. So can you provide examples of how organizations have successfully implemented FinOps principles in their Databricks environments, and what benefits have they seen? So I see a lot of maturity of organizations that start to implement this FinOps flywheel of the phases. It's a great methodology, and I'm seeing a lot of organizations start to get great results out of it. I would say that depending on where you're at in the flywheel, don't feel like you have to be on the optimize phase. I think a lot of folks struggle trying to get to even getting out of the inform phase, let alone getting into the optimize. Don't sweat it. I would definitely recommend using a product like Unravel, because we were purpose built for this methodology, and automating some of these recommendations has been what we've been doing for 10 plus years now. All right, that's it for the questions here. What I will do next is leave you with my call to action here. So get your free Databricks health check today. You can visit this link here. You can unlock 50% more workloads for the same budget, identify and eliminate wasted spend on storage and compute, and increase the productivity of your data teams. My name is Chris Santiago again, and I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Thank you.